Hi guys. All right, as promised, I was going to continue to make content. So, as usual, here I am. And today we're going to talk about the application of radical forgiveness, the use of the mirrors, how to understand source perspective as a result of that. And I'm going to use a real life example myself. So, we begin this story very simply telling you a little bit about my history. Because as you know, conscious mirrors, when you are interacting with people, the way that you realize your oneness is through the experience of the state of being, period. Whatever your being, whatever your story is, this is what's on display. And a lot of times, if you find yourself triggered for absolutely no reason at all, it's probably because you have something unhealed that has to do with your story. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about mine. I want to tell you about my dad. Okay, my dad was a super charming, high-functioning alcoholic that could charm the panties off a nun or convince an Eskimo to buy ice. He was that charming. Okay. I would say that although he was a high-functioning alcoholic, people wouldn't know that because of that high-functioning aptitude. You wouldn't even know. If he got too drunk, however, he would become belligerent. He'd get into that aggressive fight. You know, other things about him that's true. He was prone to fits of anger. He couldn't control his emotions sometimes. He would completely fly off the handle and be completely out of control. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say he walks in drunk one day and he steps on my little sister's toy or something like that. He would fly into a rage over having stubbed his toe or something. And then he would break everything, and it was like a cyclone or a tornado went through the room, and in that moment you couldn't stop him because he was exploding, right? And my mother shielded me from that, but I am aware of this, and my sister told me what it was like growing up with him. Okay, so that was really important. Because I used to wonder what it was like to have a dad in my life, and I always thought they got the better end of the stick, and I was wrong. My mother was smart enough to shield me from this background. However, this is my background. His name was Juan. Okay? I'm giving you this history for a reason, because I want you to understand two things. One is your oneness with everything is totally your story at the end of the day. And so, it's scary sometimes how you pick up where you left off. And the reason you resolve your history is because unless you want to repeat it, you fix it. All right? So I gave you all of this background on purpose because, as you know, I left a relationship with a high-functioning alcoholic who was charming. He had other substance abuse issues too, but regardless, who was charming, who could do the exact same thing I just said, charm the panties off a nun, sell ice to an Eskimo. And ironically, of all things, his name was John. What is that? English for Juan. Why I couldn't see that I was picking up my history where I left off, I don't know. But this is an important part of the story. Because when it comes to radical forgiveness, it is not suggested you do it while your emotions are fresh. You take as long as you need to heal from something. Doesn't matter. But when those emotions have gone away, now you're able to do so. If you still have those emotions fresh in your being, it's nearly impossible to apply higher level thinking, because in that moment you are stuck in your 3D and you're in your basis nature. And the inability to forgive something, it's big. You just can't do it. It's not there. It's like asking you to have superhuman strength to stop you from flying through the windshield if you weren't wearing a seatbelt. Okay. um, Emotions, just so you understand your reality, are the fuel that fuels your reality bus. And so it's very important to understand that. And so as a result, if you have these things going for you, it's going to be really hard unless you get control of them. All right. So when it comes to radical forgiveness, there was a few things I needed to understand. Radical forgiveness is not about actually forgiving a person. You know, you did this to me and I'm the victim and I'm going to be the bigger person. That's not what this means. Radical forgiveness is about obtaining source perspective and about understanding that nothing was wrong and these are the things that needed to happen to make you you. And in this particular case, the way that I did that was twofold, because I needed to get to the place where it says in the Bible, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." Now, why is that true? Well, because my story was unresolved, I was destined to partner with someone who had to show me what was unresolved. And that aspect of my life wasn't resolved. Just because I ignored it and I put it away doesn't mean that it wasn't there. And so as a result, that had to evolve, and I have to learn to appreciate the good, the bad, and the ugly. What we think is good, bad, and ugly. Because if we don't, we're not mastering our self-love, first and foremost. We're not accepting the ugliest parts of ourselves, and we're not forgiving them. And this is required. Because if you can't accept yourself at this level, okay, when partnered with someone else, your ego has a field day with you. So it's required. It was necessary part of my journey. And so for me to get to the part where I can appreciate what I went through, I had to understand it from this level. I hope that makes sense. So that's what I had to do. I had to get to the point where I could apply the Bible, I could apply radical forgiveness, and I could use the conscious mirrors that I teach everyone every day in order to understand how, what, when, and where I had to go through this and make peace with it. I say this because I don't want you guys to think that he was a horrible person. He was not. He was an amazing person. He had a beautiful heart. He was very kind most times, and he had a substance abuse problem that unfortunately was part of my destiny to be paired with, so to speak. But had it not been for those circumstances in his life, I wouldn't get to the point where I could let it go and I could forgive. Now, why is this so important? I'll tell you. It's a very simple thing. If I held on to my anger, my resentment, "you did this to me, you fucker," and I remained angry and I didn't appreciate what had happened, I would be forced to repeat this. Even if I decided never to get into a romantic relationship, it would appear in my job. If it didn't appear in my job, it would appear in my family. If it didn't appear in my family, someone else would come for me, because whatever is unresolved in you comes for you on repeat no matter what. Your history, it's important that you understand it and you make peace with it, because it also comes for you on repeat. Your subconscious is designed to show you every aspect of yourself. Remember, the nature of God is true of everyone. The nature of God is, I am everything at once. Good, supposedly, and bad, supposedly, right? So that means you're good, and whatever you consider bad, also you. If you're not at peace with this, you're going to have a lot of trouble in life, because your ego has a field day with you, to be honest. See, And this is the hard part. This is the true part of falling in love with yourself. You see, that's why I'm putting my little hearts on my cheeks. And for the time being, that's where they're going to remain, because I'm reminding myself to love the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, in order for me to forgive, in order for me to let go, I need to, because I cannot move on with my life. What the resentments that you hold on to, I know it looks as if you're sending it out to someone else, but your subconscious doesn't recognize anyone but you. So it's like a boomerang. You throw it out and it comes right back. And then it starts affecting other aspects of your life. So a lot of times women ask me, why does this situation keep repeating? Because you haven't dealt with the first time. And because you haven't dealt with the first time, you're going to pick the same person in different bodies over and over and over and over again until you get it. You take ownership of something, and this is me taking ownership. I am not a victim of what happened to me, but I did need to get out of that 3D mentality, rise above, apply radical forgiveness, agree to see this differently, and understand why things happen. Because the worst thing you can do as a creator, as someone who has dominion over their 3D, is say, why did this happen to me? You never ask why of causation. If you are causation itself, you don't ask why. It's just wrong on so many levels. And it's because your subconscious acts like a computer. It's like the AI. And the AI is only as good as the questions you ask it. So if you want it to give you a good answer, you have to ask a good question. So asking why when I'm the one that should own it only gives me more of what I don't want, especially because a lot of times if you ask why of causation, you're asking why because you don't want it to happen anymore. And so your brain, as the AI computer-like thing that it is, will only respond with more of what you don't want so that you can figure it out for yourself as to why it's repeating. All right, so it's a very important lesson when it comes to having dominion over your earth, having an understanding of non-duality. Never ask why of causation. Okay, you want to understand why, and this is why you use these mirrors. In this particular case, I'm well aware of me repeating my history, of me picking up where my mom left off, of me making sure that I forgave. Now, why would I want to tell you that? Because when I was younger, I was about 18, I graduated top 10% of my class. I was smart. I was quote unquote a geek, okay? And I, at that point, looked for my father, and my dad was kind of proud of me. And my mom, I remember, God bless her heart, I understand her feelings, was a little bitter. She's like, he didn't have a hand in raising you. That's all me, And she was a little bit bitter. And I realized, had she forgiven, I wouldn't have repeated this story. Because she didn't, the sins of the father befall the children, and we pick up where you left off. Since I recognized from a non-dual standpoint that I was my mother, if I don't do something differently, again, learn your history, because if you don't learn your history, you're forced to repeat it. If I don't recognize that I was my mother at some point, unable to forgive, I would still be stuck. But the buck stops here, because I'm applying everything that I teach. I'm applying my understanding of source perspective. I'm not a victim. I am accepting myself as creator. I'm taking my existential kink, looking at it head on, applying radical forgiveness and understanding, applying the Bible. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Okay, I'm applying. I'm not all talk, here's the Bible and I don't apply it. No, I apply it to my life, and this is what sets me free. Because if I wouldn't, I'm telling you right now, the resentment, the bitterness, the whatever you don't let go of, whatever you don't learn to appreciate will come back. And in this particular case, these things make me who I am. They make me a better therapist. They make me someone who can relate. If you guys think that my life is always perfect all the time, you might be hesitant to come talk to me about stuff because you don't think that I've been through it. When in fact I have. This is where my wisdom comes from. I didn't just wake up, well, maybe a little bit. but it was lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of having inherited wisdom from my family, having understanding this and learning to apply it. But my biggest thing here, and the biggest thing I want you guys to understand, is application is everything. If you do not apply what you guys are learning when it comes to the law, when it comes to learning the Bible, when it comes to learning manifestation, when it comes to understanding, and if you don't apply this is not your wisdom, it's hearsay. And you can insert yourself and say, this is how I use this, and this is how it served me, and this is how I got out of this situation. That is a whole nother ball game. I hope you guys understand that. This is why I stand so secure in the things that I say. And the reason that I was honest yesterday was because, honestly, I was more mad at myself for not seeing it. Because, honestly, I'm like, que pendeja, what the hell? It's so obvious what I was going through. But I was in it, so I couldn't see it. I was in it. And when you're in the 3D box, you don't see it. It's like your blind spot. And so I'm the first person to tell you that it happens to everybody. And yet, like I said, I applied the tools that I give you. And that's why I am at peace. I know it sounded horrible, some of the things that I went through. Yes, they were. They were really bad. In fact, when I first got here, I used to cry at the drop of a hat. If I broke a dish, I'd be, and I'd start bawling. Yeah, I didn't realize that, if something, people with ADHD, we have fingers, we have butter fingers, and every single time I'd be like, oh my God, here comes the onslaught, here comes the yelling. And I didn't realize how out of whack my nervous system was until then. Okay. Recently I did a somatic breathwork exercise, and I'm going to lead one soon for my group. And I was shocked at how much I had held in. I had no idea I wasn't touching it with a 10-foot pole. And yet I tell you guys, time and time again, fear and pain is the shortcut. A lot of times we don't realize how afraid we are of pain. And so we either respond with anger, triggers, or the inability to look at these things, and we shut ourselves down. And if you do that, you're setting yourself up in your next relationship. And by relationship, I do not necessarily mean romantic. I mean, it can be romantic. It's usually that's the closest mirror you got, but it's also your kids. If it's not your kids, it's work. If it's not work, it's your neighbor. Because at the end of the day, the most important lesson I will ever teach you, and that I really hope you guys come to understand, is that you are the source light on display at all times. And if you do not learn to love what you see out there, you're missing your mark, and you'll never see past the veil. In order for you to know how yours is the face of God in atonement at one in the moment, you have to love what you're seeing out there, because it's coming from you. You are that light. And when you do that, you see differently, you act differently, you come from a place of true love. And when you do that, people are powerless to that. They automatically love you. They automatically gravitate towards you. You've disarmed your ego. So I'm saying this to say that even though what I went through was hard, it was my greatest teacher. And if I can love that ugly aspect of myself, which I will say is half my DNA, mean, thank God I'm not an alcoholic, but it's still half my DNA. I'm still prone to rages. I've learned a great deal of control through my life. I had a son with special needs, so I learned, right? Still half my DNA. Can you imagine what it's like to be at war with yourself because you don't love half of who you are? Ego has a field day with you if you try and get in a relationship and you have this issue. So I'm saying this to say that even though what I went through was hard, I appreciate my teacher and I give him the respect that he's due. And although I want nothing to do with this, I do appreciate what I went through and do appreciate the circumstances, because without that having happened to me, I wouldn't have reached this conclusion. And then I can't share it with you. And that's what I do best. Share whatever happens, turn it into wisdom, and then give it to you all. I hope that what I just said helps you. I hope that what I just said helps you make peace. As oftentimes you guys ask me, how do I love myself? How do I love myself? This is how. You love the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is a shortcut, if I've ever had one. It's a shortcut to letting go of fear. And if you make peace with this and you understand that forgiveness is more about understanding that it's acceptance. Yes, Terry, thank you. That it's about acceptance, that it's about letting go and surrendering, and that it's about not being mad or bitter because you're not attacking anyone else but yourself. So I hope what I just said helps. I hope you hear what I'm saying. I hope you can use this in your own life, whether it's a romantic partner, a sister, a brother, a father, a mother. And listen, if you have to love them from a distance, that is okay. That is okay. But it is your responsibility not to react and rather respond. Act with love, act with understanding, and learn to own circumstances as first cause. Anytime you say, I don't know how this is me, or I think it's them, you're not owning, okay? When you're not owning and things are happening to you, I'm going to tell you the difference. What that means is you are a servant, a quote-unquote slave to 3D. You're not free. You're not free. Okay? Autopilot's in control, your reactions, everything that you're doing, you're just playing a very small role because you've forgotten who you are. And 3D has you by the short and curlies? Yeah? Okay? 3D has you by that. But if you own everything, you accept responsibility, you're not waiting for others to change. 3D will serve you. It's the other way around. You are no longer the servant. I want you guys to understand that. 3D serves you. This is what you're here to discover. And quite honestly, that's what the Bible's for. Okay, there are lots of other books. But the Bible is the quickest way for you to understand how to have dominion over your experience and achieve freedom over your emotions, and understand that every circumstance is here to show you who you are. Okay? That's what it's for. And if you can love and appreciate that, that's half your battle right there. Thank you guys. And I will see you soon. See if I can keep my little hearts going. And I thank you. And I will read these comments in a little bit and respond as soon as I log off. But thanks.